Hi, I'm Cher Safran with Share Wisdom Network and host of the Nautilus Book Awards Author Spotlight Series. Now celebrating 20 years of honoring better books for a better world, Nautilus Book Awards continues this important mission forward to spotlight visionary books that co-create a better world and more positive future. The Nautilus Awards embraces books from a wide spectrum of the publishing industry, which radiate hope and wisdom, inspiring and connecting our lives as individuals, communities, and planetary citizens. This is a vast and crucial conversation, now more than ever. The Author Spotlight series offers opportunity to increase the volume and visibility of the authors' voices as found in these empowering Nautilus Award-winning books. Author Jennifer Monahan is with us here today, sharing insights from her Nautilus Award-winning book, Where To? How I Shed My Baggage and Learned to Live Free, which won the Silver Award in the self-published category. I'm so happy to introduce you to Jennifer. Jennifer Monahan helps people live authentic, purposeful lives that bring more joy and freedom. A business consultant, shaman, and coach, she works with people all over the world. Author of 2 award-winning books, including This Trip Will Change Your Life, Jennifer has multiple articles published and has a podcast on Blog Talk Radio. She's writing her 3rd book, an authentic life handbook based on the work she's done with her clients. And when not traveling, Jennifer splits her time between Guatemala and the U.S. Jennifer, I'm delighted you're here with us today.
I'm thrilled to be here today, Cher. I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
I really am too. And I said before we started that I was walking this journey with you in your life journey and got to know Guatemala so much better in your sharing. And I was thinking, wait a minute, you had this incredible life. You had a great job, great salary, beloved by your colleagues. I didn't want you to leave. And you had lots of friends. And yet you left your job and started traveling the world. So what compelled that decision?
I did. Well, about 5.5 years ago, I was in a very bad accident. I was walking down the street in San Francisco, and a guy hit me with his minivan at 25 miles an hour. And I was real lucky. When he hit me, I went up on the hood of his car. He drove for part of the block before he stopped, and I rode on the hood. And then he stopped, and I fell and was out of work for over 3 months and had some form of a cast or crutches for 14 months, actually. And when you go through something like that, it really changes your perspective and how you look at life. I was lucky. If I had fallen under his tires, I'd be dead today. And that stayed with me. I mean, every step of my healing journey from that accident, people said to me how lucky I was. And I started to think about my life and everything I was doing. And you're right, I had a great life. I was really happy with my life. But I realized that I hadn't taken many risks with my life. I kind of played it safe, right? I went to college, I got a good degree, and then I went and, got a good job and kept working my way up the job aspect of it, and hadn't done anything really for me. And I didn't want to be in a point where I regretted not doing stuff for me in my life. So I quit.
You quit?
I put everything in storage. Yep. Gave up my rent controlled apartment in San Francisco, put everything in storage, and started taking a trip.
And that trip was a lot more than what one might imagine taking a trip around the world. It was a trip of a lifetime. And you shared so much of that in this. Why don't you read actually the segment from your book that will really give us a glimpse into where this journey was taking you?
Sure. So the first place that I went, I ended up going to 4 countries, was Guatemala. And I spent most of my time in Guatemala. I just fell in love with it there. As you mentioned, I do shamanic work and was fortunate enough to meet some Guatemalan shamans and participate in a a ceremony at one of the Mayan sites for the spring equinox. And this is the story of that. It's just a brief description of what it was like. It was around 2:00 in the morning, and we were walking first to the ancient ruins in Washaktun, one of the Mayan sites, just to give you a little bit of background. It was dark, even with the stars and a quarter moon in the sky. We arrived first, and I breathed in the silence and the expectant energy of the space. The pyramid loomed over the altar, casting a long shadow. I could barely make out the 3 temples opposite the pyramid. A light flickered through the trees, and a group of shamans began making their way over to where we stood. A second group arrived behind the pyramid and parked a large van overflowing with items needed for the ceremony. After we unpacked the van, we got to work preparing the altar. Some of the shamans created a design on the altar in sugar, and then we placed pieces of copal on top of the design. This created the spiritual foundation for the sacred fire ceremony. Once the design was covered, all of the remaining areas of the top of the altar were covered with the rest of the copal. Then we spread wood chips and wood slats on top of that. The shamans then laid candles across the top of the wood chips, aligning the colors with the directions: red for east, white for north, black for west, yellow for south, and green and blue for the center. Along the perimeter, we then placed flower petals that aligned with the colored candles: red, white, and yellow rose petals, and purple statice as a gift to the universe. Finally, we encircled the perimeter with hay. With the altar ready, the shamans got together to discuss the best way to do the ceremony. Each expressed his or her opinion, and very quickly the ceremony parameters were defined. We each were given some white candles, and after lighting them, we placed them on the altar to start the fire ceremony. One shaman took a conch shell and blew into it to call in the ancestors and guides and signal the start of the ceremony. As the fire began to take hold, another of the shamans began. He had us face east and began chanting and calling to the spirits of the east to be with us during the ceremony. We offered our thanks and paused in reflection. Then we turned and did the same for the other directions: west, south, and north. By the time we turned to face north, the fire was roaring, and I needed to take a couple steps away from it because of the intense heat it was giving off. We all turned to face the fire, and the shaman then began speaking. Since much of the dialogue was in one of the Mayan languages, I didn't understand what he was saying, but the meaning and feeling came across to me clearly as gratitude. When he finished talking, he offered some bread and sugar to the fire. A woman picked up where he left off. She was dressed in a traditional Mayan outfit of a white shirt with purple and deep red embroidered flowers on it, and a brightly colored skirt. Her red headscarf marked her as a shaman. But it was the intensity of her petitions that caught my attention. At times crying, she prayed earnestly and sincerely. I could feel her intentions in my heart and was moved more than once to tears with her. One by one, the other shamans also spoke of their gratitude for Mother Earth, the animals and food provided, for the wisdom and history of the sacred site, for the Mayans and Guatemalans, for the sun and moon, for the planet, and for each other. As each shaman finished, he or she would make an offering to the fire of candles, bread, cacao, or sugar. The expressions of gratitude continued for nearly 2 hours. The same group of musicians that were at the ceremony the night before were here this morning, and they played a number of rhythms that aligned with the words being spoken. As the shamans offered their gratitude, the night sky began to gradually lighten. At first, the temple buildings were simply dark shadows in the dark gray night. Then they became clearer and clearer, until finally they were easily discernible as buildings, and individual details became more apparent. I watched the sky transition from black to deep purple, to a gray blue to a pink gold color, waiting for the moment that the sun would come up over the horizon. As the ceremony reached its climax, I and the other shamans and people around the fire were given a handful of seeds to offer. I silently expressed my gratitude for everything that had lined in my life to bring me to this point, right here, and asked that the universe be with me and all beings as we work to achieve higher consciousness. Then I made my way to the altar and let my offering join those of the others. Around 6 a.m., the shamans stopped their offerings and everyone turned to the east and waited for the sun to come up and illuminate the interior of the middle temple. I climbed up the pyramid where a large group of people had gathered to watch. Carlos had gotten there before me, and he motioned me to join him. We all stood silently, waiting. And then it happened. The sun broke free of the horizon and began its ascent into the sky. The sky shifted from pink gold to orange, and as I watched, the sun lit up the inside of the temple. One long sunbeam shot out from the temple directly into the fire on the altar, while another went straight up into the sky. It was as if the universe was saying, "We accept your offerings and your gratitude and bring them to a higher level and a higher place."
So beautiful. Your book is filled with that kind of beauty and deep, deep insights that you share in your own journey and insights that you receive as working with clients. But for those who don't know, what is a shaman?
Shamanism is the world's oldest healing modality. It's been around for over 10,000 years and it's been found in every single culture around the globe. A shaman is an intermediary, a liaison, if you would, between the physical human world and the spirit world. And what their job was and is, because there are still shamans today, is to help bring about healing at a soul level or at a spirit level for an individual, a family, or an entire community or world. And then help bring about physical, emotional, and mental healing through that healing of the soul. So a shaman will go into a trance-like state. They'll visit one of three spiritual worlds, the upper, middle, and lower worlds, and do their work there, working with ancestors, guides, ascended masters, holy people, to help bring about that healing.
It seems to me that that shamanic work is needed right now more than maybe ever before. And I know.
It really,
Sorry?
yes. I'm sorry. Yes, it really is.
It really is. And people right now are in a place where they're in total uncertainty, and many are needing to kind of reimagine their lives. So, from your shamanic perspective, what might you offer to those who are in this place of fear and uncertainty?
Yeah. Let me start by answering your first question, which is shamanism is extremely relevant right now, right? We are going through massive change with this pandemic that we're in, and our world will never go back to the way it was. And it's confusing and scary and stressful for every single one of us. And unlike other things that have happened in the past, this is impacting every single person in the world. And so it's a time rich for healing. And I've said that actually in some of my blogs, where this time when we've all been shut down, and I know we're getting to the point now where we're starting to reopen in different countries and tentatively start to go back to having some type of a normal semblance of life. But this shutdown time is a perfect time for us to go inward and heal what needs to be healed, to strip away what maybe we've been carrying around with us for our entire lives, and release them, so that as we go into whatever this new world is going to be, we can, in fact, do so in a new way. For anybody who's going through this kind of a struggle, what my heart says to you is, first and foremost, you can do it. You can get through this, right? We all carry so much baggage with us. And I talk about some of my own baggage in this book, right? We all go through life with this baggage and quite frankly, these masks that we wear, right? Where we put on a persona when we go to work, and maybe there's a different persona with our friends. And and we might not even know who we really are. Right? So the more we can strip away these excess things and remove the masks, I think the more we can go forward into this new reality that we're entering, um, as whole and complete as possible.
That's a beautiful vision. And you talked about letting go of the baggage, which is a part of the title of your book, and living that freedom. Um, the fact that you shared your story with such authenticity, and you really do let us go along that journey with you as you leave this behind and leave that behind, and you decide what you want to keep, that creates that sense of wholeness and healing in your life. What do you hope the readers will take away most sharing your story?
Yeah, I think for me, it's that you can do it. One of the reasons why I wrote this book, I had just finished publishing my first book, and I had readers reach out to me saying, "Oh, you need to write another, write another." And I decided to take this journey. And I was having friends and family members ask me, "How did you do this? Where did you get the courage to walk away from everything and go do this?" And I, interestingly enough, I didn't think what I did was courageous. And there were times where I was like, oh gosh, did I, do something really crazy and stupid? And maybe will I regret it? Spoiler alert, I don't regret it at all. Um, but what I learned was that people are looking for examples of other people who have done amazing things with their lives. And when I say amazing things, I don't mean curing cancer, although that is an incredible thing. And if somebody could do that, that would be wonderful, right? But amazing things like being true to who you are, and being willing to live your life as courageously as possible, even if it means that you don't have all the answers. And even if it means that you wake up in the morning, you're like, gee, I don't know how this day is going to go. Right? And I think we're all at that time right now, right? We don't know how our days are going to go. We don't know what our future is going to be like, right? If you look here in the United States, we've got a lot of unemployment, businesses are shutting down, things like that. There's no sense of security anymore, right? That has kind of been pulled out from underneath of us. But what I found is when I started my journey in Guatemala and what I wrote about in this book, I was consciously choosing to remove that rug, that safety net that we all have. And that was inspiring for people, which is why I wrote it down. Because I think the more that we can live our lives courageously, the more authentically we'll live our lives as well.
Such a perfect message at the perfect time. And I thank you, Jennifer, for touching our hearts, for opening our minds, inspiring our lives through your really remarkable book of your own journey, Where To? How I Shed My Baggage and Learned to Live Free. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
And on behalf of the Nautilus Book Awards team, thank you all.